Hi, art friends. So are you a digital artist or are you a traditional artist and you are looking to get into the exciting world of art commissions? Yay! Today is the day. Today we get you started and on the path to earning money as a working artist doing art commissions. This is going to be a great topic and I'm so glad that you're here today. I'm going to take you step by step through the process of setting up a art commission business, and I'll also share with you some do's and don'ts, some best practices, some things to avoid, and it's going to be a wonderful way to get you launched and get you started on this exciting adventure. So welcome to the Artist Life Podcast with Dena Tollefson. I'm so glad you're here with me in the studio today. And in this today's podcast, I'm going to take you through this process and make it as stress-free as possible. Be sure to stay all the way through today's discussion. I'm going to give you some super valuable information that you're not going to want to miss. So the first thing that we should talk about is, what is an art commission? How is it different than artwork that you might make in your regular art space? How is it different? So I looked in the handy-dandy dictionary, the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and according to Merriam-Webster, a commission is a formal request to produce something, especially an artistic work, in exchange for payment. Okay, so you might be familiar with the method of where you make artwork and then you would ask someone to buy it. So you might make something and then you might go and have it sold through an art gallery. It might be sold at an art fair. You might sell to a relative, to a friend, to an acquaintance, through a coffee shop, something like that. And this process is called speculative art creation. And speculative art creation is different than an art commission, in that an art commission, you already have a client. So a client has agreed to pay a certain amount of money in exchange for, if you're a digital artist, a digital file, and if you are a traditional artist, in exchange for something tangible in like a drawing or a sketch or a painting, a piece of glass, a sculpture, something like that. So basically an art commission is where you're making customized artwork for a client who has agreed with you in advance on a purchase price, and they're paying you ahead of time for something that has not yet been created. Okay, so now let's talk about your first step. Here is the first step. Yay! Here's the first step to getting in the art commission business. All right, step 1, create public awareness. And what is public awareness? Is basically letting people know that you do art commissions and putting that information on your social media platforms. So if you are wanting to sell art commissions, be aware that clients are going to want you to be on one of the major platforms. They're going to want you to be either on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. One of those platforms. You can be on other platforms. You don't have to be on all of the platforms. In fact, you can only be on one platform. If you're only going to choose one art platform to be on, I would recommend that you would be on Instagram. But ideally, you would be on additional ones beyond Instagram. And so what you'll want to do is in your profile. So there's an area on your profile where you can go in and say a little bit of information. They give you a couple small little space, but you can put some information about yourself. So you can say something like, you want to put in there that you take commissions. And so you could say something like DM or direct message me for commissions, or you could say email me for commissions. Now, ideally, you're going to have them email you for commissions. Now, social media is not the only place that you're going to want to create public awareness that you do commissions. Also, let friends, let relatives, let people that you know, maybe in a classroom, in a workplace, let your hairdresser know. Let people know so that you never know where your first art commission is going to happen. It likely might be with somebody that you know or that your grandma knows. So you might be wondering, well, what kind of art can be used as a commission? Well, it's really, the sky is the limit. You could do anime, you could do serious looking figures, you could do pet portraits, you could do wedding or special occasion documentation through art. But really that's not all. You can also do any kind of traditional art, any kind of digital art. You can do calligraphy. There's lots of different things that you can do as a commissioned artist. Now, you can also, when you're doing art commissions, you can deal directly with the client. That's one method. The other method is to do, the way I do is I deal through an intermediary. So I don't do commissions directly with clients. I work through the art galleries that represent my originals. And so how that works is a client might come into the gallery and say, oh, I like this work, but I wish I had a bigger painting, or I like this, but I wish it was smaller, or I like these colors, but I wish I could have this subject, that type of thing. So then the gallery gathers all that information. They work with me, and then I'll come up with a concept, let them know. They can pass that on to the client. Once everything is all agreed to, and a price is agreed to, and the size and the subject matter and the colors and all of that type of thing is worked out, then and only then the gallery will then ask the client. They'll do 50% up front, but sometimes they'll ask for payment all the way up front, and then they'll let me know, and then I wait until the gallery tells me, okay, we've got payment, and then I'll get started on the artwork. Once I've got the artwork done, then I will let the gallery know, and oftentimes they'll want to know like partway through. Like the client sometimes might want to see an in-process photo of where I'm at, but then once I'm all the way done, then I let them know, and then I will then either ship to an address that they give me, or I will ship the painting to the gallery, and then the client will either pick it up or they'll have it shipped to their location. Okay, so now that we have created public awareness in step one, that we do commissions, the next step two, is to set up your prices. So whether you are, again, a digital artist or a traditional artist, either way, pricing is super, super important. And so you're going to want to determine ahead of time, before you interact with your client, determine ahead of time what your price list is going to look like. And you can decide to do that in a couple different ways. One way is that some artists will do is that they'll say, okay, a headshot, and that's from the head or the shoulders up. And then another kind of pricing might be torso, which would include from the, the bottom of the torso up, or a full body pose. Another method might be if there are multiple people, multiple characters in the shot. If there's a background included, that's how some artists will do the pricing. Other artists might, like for example, if you're doing pet portraiture, you might say, okay, just the face of the pet or the body of the pet, multiple pets with a background. That's a way that you can handle your pricing and have different prices for different things or different complexities. Another way, if you do weddings, for example, special events, you might say, okay, the bride and the groom together, or if we have them in the venue, we have the bridal party. That might be a different way to do different number of people involved. How complex it is, that's another way to do your pricing. But another way to do the pricing is if you are doing artwork by size. You can do a square inch method, you can do a linear inch method, you could do a time and materials method, you could do a best artist comparison method. If all of these terms are kind of like, what are all of these terms? If you haven't already seen my series on how to price your artwork to sell, I recommend after this video, pop on over there and take a look at those videos and see there may be something that fits you really well. Each artist is going to be individual on how the pricing structure works best for them. So I'm hoping that in these videos you're going to find something that suits you really well. Now, now, if you're like me, you might hear from someone like, "Oh, we want to do a commission," and then it's like, "Yay, I'm going to get a commission." And then the next thought that you have is like, I'm feeling stressed. What am I going to do?" I know for me personally, if I'm just making art, here in the studio, it's like kind of a Zen experience, and I'm just kind of doing my thing, and I'm not feeling really a lot of stress. But if I'm working for a specific client who is looking for something, and the gallery's counting on me having something that the client likes, I do feel some stress. And I know for me, what I'll do is I will have the gallery charge anywhere from 20 to 40% more, depending on how much detail the client is looking for. If they're looking for a lot of approval cycles, if they want to be like super interactive with it, or they're like really specific on colors, maybe they sent fabric swatches, or they did something like that and they want to have me match exact colors. If it's something like that, then consider charging more. So you might want to, if you think about if you do both standard work and you do commission work, you might want to consider charging a little bit more, or quite a bit more, depending on the client. You might want to charge more for commission work. So here are some do's and don'ts associated with pricing. Do decide ahead of time what your prices are going to be, and let that client know ahead of time so that they can be informed and you have an agreed upon price before you start. Another do is high versus low pricing. Do start low with your prices. So the danger of having too high a price when you're doing commissions is that you literally won't get any art commissions. That can be if you overprice. Then there's not going to be any artwork coming in for you to do. So the better thing is to start with low and then slowly raise those prices up. And you'll know that it's safe to raise prices up when you find that you can't keep up with demand. That's a nice way to know that your pricing is too low, and you can slowly raise your prices up. And then do keep your client informed on how things are going. Let them know. For example, if it's just a fast turnaround, you don't necessarily need to let them know a lot. But I would say, let them know, hey, I've received your payment. Let them know when you get started on their work. Let them know when you're partway or halfway through, or when you're all the way finished. I will caution you, though, on sending in-process work, views of the in-process work. Sometimes that can work, and sometimes it can be problematic, because what can happen is that the client can sometimes freak out if they see something that's halfway finished, and they may or may not have the ability to visualize what the final project might look like. And so sometimes that can scare the client a little bit, so I just kind of be careful with that. Sometimes just having them refer to your finished work on your website or in your social media, they can see what your finished work looks like. That might sometimes be the way to go. But ultimately, you'll have to decide what suits you best. Okay, and here's a don't. And this is a super, super, super important don't. Whatever you do, do not send any finished work to the client until their payment has cleared your payment portal. Don't send it. It's tempting. Sometimes they might say, oh, I'll send you the final payment later, or I'll send you the final payment once I like it. That's not a good thing to do. It's a kiss of death, because that's a way that scammers can work. They can also work by not sending you full payment, or the payment defaults or something like that. You want to avoid that at all costs. Okay, so this next one is a do. Do consider setting up a calendar for yourself with all of the information about your different commissions. So you maybe you're working on one commission. Even if you're just doing one commission, you don't have multiple commissions going at once, but you've got maybe one commission, I would still do some type of a calendar where I'm showing, contact with client, the payment was received, when the painting or the artwork or the digital file is due, and then when payment was received. I would kind of keep that all in a calendar if it was me. It's up to you how you like to track your time. Some people just keep a journal. Some people like to do a calendar. You can put it on your phone, whatever works for you. But keeping track of all of that actually helps a person feel a little bit less stressed because it's written down. You can refer to it. And then you don't have to scramble or wonder in the middle of the night, like, if I missed a deadline or something. So it's just kind of a nice way to keep everything in one place. Okay, so now on to step 3 of how to start being a commissioned artist today. Yay, yay. All right, so step 3 is create a art website. And so the website should be an art-related website. So not a personal website, but an art-related website. So if you are a multi-talented person and you cook and you bake and you do music and things like that, don't include those in this website. Only make this just about your artwork. And in your art website, you can include things like I do. I sell prints off of my website. I don't sell any originals out of my website. Those are just sold through the galleries. But I do have prints that are available. And so you can have your prints. If you have a contract, if you're going to be doing working directly with the client and having the client commission directly through you as opposed to working through a gallery. If you're going to work directly through a client, I recommend that you would also put your contract on your website. You can have examples of your work. You can have your biography and your art resume or your curriculum vitae. You can have a list of expectations of what it would be like to work with you. If you wanted to go as far and go far out there with that, you could have an artist right and a client right, artist rights and client's rights kind of statement in there as well. And also note that you do not have to have an actual website. It is just a really nice thing to do. It is possible to do all of your commissions through, for example, Instagram with just an email or direct messages, that type of thing. Or it is possible if you work through art galleries to just have the gallery do everything and you just do email. But what is super nice about a website is that a website is a way for you to have a collection of all things, and it's just about you. There's no competition with other artists there. And so there's no easy way for the client to get distracted and wander off to another artist. You've got their attention there when you have your own website. And what's also super nice about that is you can put a lot of detail in there that you can't put, like on Instagram, for example, you get like a couple characters. You don't get a lot of space to put anything in there about yourself. But with your website, you can show really all of your creativity, and it's a great way to get a focus on you as an artist. And it also gives a very professional kind of a thing about your work. So here's a do. Do post examples of what your artwork looks like. So that can be, for example, you could show examples of previous commissions. If you haven't done a commission yet, just show examples of what you would be doing had you had a commission. You don't have to tell anyone that it's your first commission. That can just be your own secret. You can just say, here are examples of my work, and then let it go at that. Now, here's a don't. Don't publish any information about you personally that's going to make you uncomfortable. So if you're not comfortable, for example, with any kind of details about yourself, leave those off. What is private about you should stay private. You should only put on there what you're comfortable with. So the next one is a do. So do list prices on your website if you're going to be working directly with the client. Now, if you are going to be working through a gallery like I do, I on purpose do not put prices for my originals on my website because I'm trying to drive interest over to the art galleries. And they're the ones that broker the sale, they take the payment, they ship the work and do all of that. So by not putting the prices on my personal website for my originals, I'm doing that purposefully. But for my prints, which I do want people to buy prints off of my website, I do have the prices for the prints there. And ultimately, you'll need to decide what you're comfortable with and what works best for you. All right, so now we're on to step 4. Okay, so step 4 is to set up a payment portal. So an example of a payment portal is PayPal. Another example of a safe credit card portal would be Square. So key here is to always, cash is king. If it's US dollars or euros or rubles, or you have some local currency, lira, whatever your local currency is, work in your local currency or work in something. Don't do whatever you do. Don't do NTFs and don't use Bitcoin. Now, if you're working with galleries like I do, the gallery has got my home address and they have my email. They've got some information so that they can do an e-check with me, or they'll send a check, a paper check in the mail. Now, what I recommend you don't do is I do not recommend, if you're dealing directly with a client, I do not recommend that you have them send you an e-check, and I do not recommend that you have them send you a paper check. Avoid regular checks. Stay with something like either PayPal or Square if you are doing a direct interaction with the client. And the reason that you would not want to use an e-check or use a wire transfer or a direct look into your banking account, the reason you don't want to do that is there are a lot of scammers out there. Sadly, there are a lot of scammers out there that want to take advantage of artists. And so they will say things like, I'm very interested in your art, and send me the artwork, and then I will send you a check for more than the amount, and you can send me a check for the difference because I don't know how much I'll spend. Or they'll say something like, I want to do a wire transfer. You want to avoid all of that. So the safe and easy and way that protects both you and your client is if you're working with something like PayPal or Square, they have built-in protections. So the negative of dealing with a company like that, rather than just having a direct money transfer, is that there is a commission that they take. So PayPal, for example, takes 2.99% of all of the transactions. So you might be like, hey, I don't want to have any money taken away. But on the other hand, the nice thing about that is that you can be assured that you're not going to have any kind of scam activity, and you can also be assured that the money will clear, and then you can either send the electronic file if it's digital art, or you can send the actual drawing or painting or whatever it is that you've made. You can send that after the money clears. The whole key is wait till the money clears. All right, and this next one is a do. So do consider having a separate email if you are working directly with clients on commissions. Consider having an email that way, just for safety reasons. If you wanted to put your email, for example, out on social media, this email would be only for art commissions or art business. And what's nice about that is that way you can sort things when work comes in. You can sort things based on, the client record. You can track your payments. You can do things like that if you've got a separate email for just those things. So this next one is a don't. Now, you may have heard that God has given animals the ability to detect if something is wrong. So an animal, if there's danger, if there's something wrong, animals won't go towards it. They'll run the other direction. Well, we as humans, God also gave this gift to us of being able to discern if something doesn't feel right. And you may have heard that being called as like trust your gut. So in this world of art commissions and in the art business in general, it is so important to trust your gut. So what we'll want to do is, here's a don't, is if something doesn't feel right, don't take the commission. If it seems like it's just an unbearable client to deal with, or a client that wants something that is beyond your comfort level of what you want to produce, it's better to not take the commission and walk away from it and really work with clients who are going to fit fit your model of what you want to do and are also, kind of nice to work with. So in step 4, we set up a payment portal. Now in step 5, we're going to set up the contract terms. So here in step 5, you can use a Google. There are different ways you can do this. You can go old school, where you just have it written down and you just do cut and paste onto an email. That's the easy way to do it. Another way to do it, if you want to get more high tech with it, is you could do some type of a Google form where it could be interactive, or even a contractual form. You can do that interactively with your client. And it just depends on how tech savvy you are, how comfortable you are with that whole thing, and how many commissions you anticipate doing. If you're just getting started, an easy way to do it is just to have the wording and just have it in an email, send the email, have them fill it out, and then say that them returning it filled out fulfills the contractual needs. And so basically when they send it back to you and they fill out the information, essentially you have a contract. So that's all that you really need to have, is just a simple little cut and paste thing. If you want to get fancy with it, go for it. You can do a Google form. But just starting out, I'd recommend, kind of keep it simple and then build on that and see how that goes. So at a minimum, your contract is going to need to have, and the word contract sounds scary, I know, but essentially all the contract is it's an agreement. So it's an agreement between you and your client on what they will provide, which is the money, and what you will provide, which is the artwork. And all it is it's just a description of how that's going to happen. So you would describe the money, how much money is going to come. Is it all at once? Is it in a down payment form? If there's a final payment, when would that come? The dates of when you will have the artwork completed. And then if it's a digital file, when you would be emailing it to them. And if it's a traditional artwork, a physical artwork, then it would be would it be shipped to them? Would they come and pick it up from you? How would that happen? And then also you would want information of their contact information, and then they would want your contact information. So you would want to provide your email address, and like we talked about before, if you wanted to have a separate art email, then you can do that, or your regular email. And then you would want to have, possibly, you might include your shipping address. I would be very careful about that because that can get into some privacy issues. So you may or may not want to include information about your home address or your location. That's up to you to decide that. That's a safety issue and a security issue. Only you can decide that. And then the client, if you are shipping a painting or a drawing or something like that, they'll need to give you where it's to go, with a shipping address of where the artwork is to go. And then you both will need to have each other's email. And likely you'll also want to have a phone number in case you want to talk via phone. But at a bare minimum, you'll just need email. So here's just a very, very simple art contract with some information on here that you might want to, if you want to grab any of this detail, go ahead. I will also have it in the description. So if you want to cut and paste from the description of this podcast video, go ahead and grab that. But basically, it's artwork price, and then is it framed or shipped, or is it a digital file? And then what are the taxes and any kind of a VAT if that's applicable? And then the total of those two numbers. And then what's the down payment? Is there a remaining balance? Artist name, artist email, and then optional, the artist mailing address, the client's email, the client's mailing address, and you'll need that if you're going to ship physical work. You do not need that if it's a digital file. The client's signature and the date. And that's as far as contractually what you need. You also need some type of a description of what is going to be sent. So the description could look something like, here's an example, Tollefson's sample contract for original artwork. This agreement is between, and then you'd insert the client name, the client, and then your name. the artist to create an original, one-of-a-kind commissioned art, and then you would say like colors and that type of thing, or a description of what you're making. And it will be constructed from, and then you'd have the dimensions, the materials. You'd indicate if it's framed or unframed, or if it's digital only, and then expected completion date, and then you'd put your completion date in there. And then if you have curing time, drying time, something like that, you'd have that in there. Artwork will be sent via, and then you'd put the method in there. The shipping method, if it's shipping insured, with a delivery signature required. Sent as a digital link if it's digital art. And then if you're going to send it like via UPS Ground, DHL, Post, if customer's going to pick it up, the artist would ship it to a gallery, the client would pick it up, or the artist might ship it to the client after payment is made to the gallery, that type of thing. You'd put that in, say 5 days after payment is received via PayPal, or if it's received via the art gallery. Here's some optional information, is that the client will provide, and then like the colors or the photos or whatever, to the artist by, and then put the date in there in order to stay on schedule. And then another optional line could be the artist will make every attempt to, and then here you might want to put some conditions like I need approval or a progress report or likeness of the subject or something like that. And then the client might be able to suggest, for example, between A or B options, if you're going to do something like that, some condition that you find acceptable. And then you'll have additional information that you might want to put there, and then you'd have the artwork price, and then fill in all that information. So something else that you could include would be artist rights, if you want to include that in your contract information, and client's rights. So you might want to say, if you want to get fancy with that, it's not necessary, but if you wanted to put some additional words in on that, feel free to do that. The next one is a don't. So don't try to stress. So with all of the things that we've talked about today, and the planning and the documents and your website and your contract, all of those things will help make you feel more at ease when you're creating the artwork. And once you have several of these commissions under your belt, it's going to come a little bit more easily. But it is a little bit stressful when you're thinking about making artwork for someone specifically with them in mind. It can be a little bit stressful. You can be kind of like, overthinking it or whatever. Try not, I always end up doing that. I always tell myself, don't stress about it. Don't worry about it. My husband, Bill, is so good about it. He always says, well, hey, don't worry about it. They picked you as the artist. Just do what feels right. So try and follow Bill's advice and don't stress when you're making these commissions. So here's another do. Do allow yourself extra time. So when you're setting up your schedule with the client, now if they want something in a rush, you can absolutely charge additional money if they want something in a rush. But if you're deciding when it's going to be done, the key here is to always allow extra time, because stuff comes up. Life happens and things happen and outside influences happen. So what I always will tend to do is, if I'm thinking I'm going to need a month to do something, I will always at least add another month, or at least maybe 2 weeks. So something like that. I'll add a buffer in to allow for any kind of contingencies or any problems. And sometimes things take longer, and it's better to deliver something early, or at least have it ready to go early, whether you deliver it early or not. It's good. It's just a relief that there's not additional pressure with having to get something done at a certain time. Okay, so the next thing that you'll need to decide is whether or not you're going to allow refunds. And whether or not you decide to allow refunds is totally up to you. It's one of those things where it can be kind of a sticky wicket. Sometimes a client will feel better, and they'll feel like less worried about doing a commission with you if you say, hey, I'll give a refund if you don't like it. But let me caution you, it can be kind of a thing where if somebody says, I want you to rework this, or I want a refund, or I don't like this, it can be a bad experience. So a safe thing from an artist's perspective is to just basically say no refunds, or all sales are final. That way the client, it can't even get into their mind that they want to have something returned back. If you do find out that you try to make some artwork for a client and it just isn't working out and you can't do it, you could consider refunding their purchase price in full and then just stopping and both of you part ways. That is one way to handle it. But if you create some artwork and you're not happy with it, the client's not happy with it, you could consider giving them a partial refund, a full refund, or give them that artwork and then maybe make another piece of art for them. So I would say handle that carefully. Getting a reputation where you're giving things away is not a good idea. Having a reputation where you aren't meeting your commitments is not a good thing either. So the whole thing about refunds versus refunds, it's refund yes versus refund no. My thought on that is to try and go refund no. And make that clear up front, make that clear in your on your website, make that clear in your contract with them. But again, it's up to you. So decide ahead of time if you're going to give a refund, and if that's part of your policy, make sure to have that in your website and also have it on your contract, whether or not refunds are part of the deal. It may be that you want to stay with all sales are final. I feel like that's kind of a safer way to go as the artist. From a client's perspective, of course, they're going to want ability to have full refunds and, have multiple changes and all of that kind of thing. But ideally, you, as the artist controlling this, you're going to want to try and rein that in and make sure that when you start the commission out, try and find out from the client as much information as possible about what they're looking for. So, specifically, are they looking for certain colors? Are they looking for a certain feeling in the art? Are they looking for a variation of something that you've done in the past? Try and pinpoint and get as much information as you can. And that way, when you're working on it, you won't stress and worry like, oh, am I doing what they would want? And then also from their perspective, it's like, hey, you know what? I've communicated with the artist and I've told them what I'm looking for. So, for example, I had a client who they liked my birch trees and they wanted to have, they had a cabin up in Michigan and they wanted to have a painting, a very large birch tree painting done. But they said, oh, but we don't want any bright colors. And I'm thinking, if you look around me here, I do a lot of bright colors. And so it's like, well, how am I going to handle that? So what I ended up doing was I made a color board for them of all the different colors that I was planning to use. And then I had them approve that first. And they also sent me some samples of some colors that they had in mind as well. So I'm like, okay, let me incorporate all of those colors. So I'll do my birch trees the way I normally would do them, but I'm just going to really follow carefully this color palette. And one of the things that you can do when you're doing a commission is you can really customize something for someone. So I asked this client, hey, in one of these birch trees, would you like me to put both of your initials, like it's almost like it's carved onto the tree? Would you like that? And I got an email back from them and they said, oh, absolutely. Yes, we would love to have that, and that would make the painting very special. So that's something to think about, is are there ways that you can, with the client's permission, that you would customize the artwork and do that within the limits of what you're willing to do as an artist. Of course, don't violate any things of what you feel comfortable doing, but it might be a way to to make it more special and to really feel like a really custom piece. And then also find out if you're doing traditional art, find out if they would like to have the back of the artwork with a special saying, if it's a gift to someone, a special saying, something like that, or a special message to them. If it's digital art, do they want to have a special thing incorporated into the artwork with some words or some things that might be special to them? So that's just kind of a neat opportunity when you're working on commission work of how to make it even a little bit more special. So another thing that you'll need to decide as the commissioned artist is whether or not you're going to allow changes. And again, this is a kind of a tricky or a slippery slope. I would recommend that you put that into your contract or onto your website and say, like if there's an opportunity to have customer input or changes, then, at the end of the artwork or halfway through, or you have to decide where that's going to be, say like there'll be one change cycle and that you're going to need input response, say, 1 week after response or 5 days after response. Put that into your wording, because what you don't want to have happen is you say, okay, client, I've got this done. Do you like it? And the due date is a week from then, and you don't hear from them until the due date, and then they're like, well, wait a minute, you didn't finish it on time. You want to avoid that. Put that into in writing if you're going to allow change cycles, how much time that they should have to respond back, and then if you don't hear, then you're going to assume that there's no change needed, or something like that. You can decide how much detail you want to put in for the words for that, but it is important to be thinking about that if you're going to allow changes. So when the artwork is finished, if it's a digital file or traditional work, do you want the customer's approval on that before you send it? That can be a little tricky because you can kind of get into this long loop of, change this, or I wanted this change, and that can get a little tricky. So my advice would be limit the amount of input and changes that they have once you actually are working on the artwork. I would say the opportunity for input would be at the beginning when they're describing what they want, but really try and limit how many changes or inputs that they're going to do once you're actually working on the artwork. And then here is a do. So ultimately, you do want to be okay that someone external to you is going to be having a say in how your artwork looks. Now, for some artists, it is very unappealing thought that someone might say, I want these colors, or I want this subject, or I want to have, this happen with this character, and this happen with this dog over to this cat, and this person has this background, and this tree is going to be in bloom with these kind of colors, and that kind of thing. For some artists, it can be very distressing to think that someone is going to be having a say in their artwork, and it's not coming just 100% from their head or their mind. If that is true of you, I would recommend you avoid the commission art process. But if that collaboration with a client is exciting to you, then I would say absolutely do go forward with commissions, because commissions can be a wonderful collaboration between you, your artistic vision, and your client's desire of what they see in the artwork. And melding those two together can sometimes make a fantastic new approach for you. It can be an art challenge in a way. Well, I hope that today's podcast has been helpful for you, and I hope that you're going to take this information and go out and get started on art commissions. So I have some more wonderful videos for you coming up, and I hope if you haven't already that you subscribe. I have a video in mind for you here that I hope that you'll take a look at and watch next. So until next time, it's Dena Tollefson, and all my best to you. Bye-bye.